Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker is a fellow German who was heading the unit Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises in the European Union's Research and Innovation Directorate General. He's now responsible for the Horizon 2020 instrument for small and medium-sized companies. Today, he will share insights about the Horizon 2020 instrument, a Champions League for European innovative SMEs. Please join me in welcoming, or herzlich willkommen, as we say in German, Dr. Bernd Reichert.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's of course an enormous pleasure to be here today and to report a little bit about our experiences at the European Union when it comes to SME support. If you so want, Europe has absolutely no other possibility than to take care of its small and medium-sized enterprises, because practically all companies in Europe are small, rarely medium-sized. Most of them are anyway micro companies. So this is the backbone of the European economy, and this is what we need to take care of. They are responsible for 85% of the net job growth. There are 22 million SMEs in Europe. So and practically 99.8% of all companies in the non-financial sector are small companies. They employ 90 million people, 67% of the total employment, and generate 58% of the value added. So it's from this point of view, it is practically absolutely necessary that we are taking care of these companies. And then, of course, we have been talking to these companies and we have been asking, well, what would you like to have? What are you missing? And the main thing is, for most of these companies, it is not necessarily, it is also very important to get financing, and I will come to this one, but much more the question is, it's about the market. To get into the market, to find customers, to understand foreign market and to get support to get into foreign markets. And I think this is one of the reasons why I'm especially happy also to be here, because this is a great hub where interesting people from all over the world meet, doing trade, talking to each other, and trying to sell, buy something. And well, that's also very important, especially in these times. Small companies in Europe are looking fairly positively into the future. It might not be a great increase in added value, but there is an increase in added value foreseen for 2016. The number of enterprises will increase even more, and even employment, which is one of the big problems in Europe, is going to, or is most likely, is envisaged to increase this year. But then, of course, the question is, I mean, if we are talking about small and medium-sized enterprises, what actually do we mean? And this is one of the possible ways of looking into it. This kind of pyramid. So you have low growth local SMEs. They rarely grow, self-employed is all they're in. Then you have low and medium growth companies, maybe exporting SMEs. They are eventually using innovation, but they're not necessarily driving innovation forward. And then on top of this pyramid, you have young innovative companies with a great potential to grow. And if you look into Europe, what you see, this is a fairly broad kind of pyramid, not very high. So we have many, many companies at the bottom. We have a good number of companies in the middle, and according to our own feeling, we have far too few companies on the top of this, because these are the companies who have the potential to grow, to create jobs, to create added value. So what we actually want is something like this. We want to help companies to go from the bottom into the more innovative part. We would like to create more companies which are innovation drivers and which have the potential to grow. So how do you go about it? Especially when you are an public organization, because that's not that easy. But before I'm telling you about how we have been going about, I want to show you a picture I guess everybody of you knows. So because the question is, where shall we support these kind of companies? Traditionally, we have been supporting small companies very, very far away from the market. So we were talking about tech transfer, we were talking about knowledge transfer, this kind of thing. So if you look into definitely the European landscape these days, there is absolutely no problem to get funding to create a new company. There's absolutely no problem in the very early stages of a company, the research phase, the project-to-project kind of phase. However, as soon as the company starts a scaling up phase and would like to go into the potential revenue, it is hitting the death valley. There is difficulties to find support, financial support in this area. What we see is venture funds are going more and more out into very late stages, which are much more safe, less risky. Banks, since the financial crisis, are not really interested to invest into early stage companies. So there is this gap, and this gap is getting wider and wider. So therefore the idea was, well, if we put any kind of money, public money, into supporting companies, this is practically where we should invest. Close to market, into an area where maybe the second big round in the order of 1 to 10 million euro is of interest to the companies. So, and then we have been talking to these companies, or even how to address this kind of companies. And the issue is you can't make a program and you say, well, companies, we would like to support you. But I would say potential champions, what they all like is they like to compete. They like to show that they are the best. They are not only the best in their city, in their region, in their country, but they are practically the best, definitely within Europe or maybe with even worldwide. So what we have been creating is a kind of a championship to say, okay, why don't you come? We will make it very, very hard, and the ones who make it through, we can never be certain, but we have a good confidence that if we put money into your company, there is a great chance that this company is growing over time. This might be fairly difficult to see, but that's not much importance. So the program, and in all fairness, my thanks to the US scheme SBIR, where we have been using a little bit of the design of it, all is slightly different. So what we are doing is we have one phase where we give the companies 50,000 euro. With this, the company can develop further its market opportunity, its market idea. So they can make market studies, they can make an IPR study, they can check with the customers, what are customers thinking about this market opportunity. They can do an IPR study in order to find out, because this is one of the big problems of small companies, do I have the freedom of operate to go into the market and to sell my things? If the company is confident, they can apply for a second phase, and in this phase, they get up to 2.5 million euro. If it's in the pharmaceutical area, even up to 5 million euro. And there the company can do everything which is not taking place in the development area anymore, but which is going into production area. So you have a prototype, but you would like to validate the prototype. You would like to show to your private investor eventually 200, 2,000 of these prototypes before you go into serial production. You have developed a new mobile phone. The problem is it is of this size, so you would like to bring it down, or these days to make it bigger. This is one of the interesting issues of mobile phones. They're becoming very big, then they go very small and are big again. So these kind of things, rather than doing research or development, what we are funding is all these kinds of already in the production phase, close to market activities which are of interest to the companies. But then there's a but, and I am responsible for SME policy already since nearly 10 years in the European Union. And we have been doing a couple of impact studies. And what we found out, if you take practically the two companies at the same level of development, and in one company you invest public funding, and in the other one you don't invest public funding, after a certain while you do not see any difference in the economic impact. Public funding alone has no or not really a strong correlation in the sense of economic impact. However, what we know, for instance, from studies in Canada or in Sweden, if you provide services, especially business coaching, to these companies, this helps them a lot to develop further. And this is logic. Quite often, small, very young companies are very much technology oriented. They need some kind of help to get into the market. But also simply from a management point of view. Imagine a company which has 10 people today and would like to grow to 200, 250, 300 people within 2-3 years. This is a totally different system of management in your company. You can't do everything alone anymore. You need to distribute, you need to delegate, you have to have a different kind of logistics system. If you go from a regional company to a company which goes global, you need to have a totally different logistics system. And this kind of support we would like to provide to the company in addition. Also, we think in the 21st century, what is really necessary is this kind of social communities, social networks. So what we are trying to build, definitely in Europe, but this extends definitely also out of Europe, is not only the network between companies, but also including investors, including big companies, including public procurement organizations, because these kind of public organizations could be extremely interesting first customers for a small company, and with this they can go into the market and say, well, we have been recognized. So this is practically what we have been doing. The program runs until 2020, has an annual budget of 400 million euro. About, I think the interesting thing is it's fairly successful. We have received more than 20,000 applications during the first 2 years, out of which we have been funding less than 1,400 companies. So it is extremely competitive. So if you ever make it through this kind of program, you can at least tell your friends and relatives and maybe your investors or customers saying, well, look, I mean, we have been going through a very, very strong, very, very competitive kind of process. What is then important for companies that it's easy to plan. So over the years, we started in 2014 until 2020, 4 times a year we look into the system. Companies can apply all the time. We work exclusively with external experts. So if I may quote His Excellency, who were talking this morning about bureaucrats running certain kind of public organizations, it's the same with us. I'm not deciding whether a company is a high-growth company. I'm using external experts. I'm using venture funds. I'm using business angels. I'm using people who have a knowledge about growing a company. It's not a bureaucrat inside the union who decides whether or not a company is good. And we have to be fairly, for a public organization, fairly fast. Within 2 months, the company knows whether or not they will receive the funding. So this is all theory. So I would like to show you very quickly 3 companies we have already been supporting, just to show you a bit what kind of companies we have. This is an interesting company from Britain. They do something feeling without touching. So you drive your car, you would like to change something on your car radio. You just do it like this, and you feel inside your hand the bottom, and you can handle this. And this you can have in very many other occasions. The interesting thing as far as was this company has been supported in March last year with 1.5 million from our side, and only a few months later they got a private round of 10 million pounds. So practically the message here was, yes, the program is de-risking private capital. Private capital might not be that willing to immediately go into this, but if we are providing the possibility to make it less risky, the private capital is going into the funds. This is a company I like a lot because pancreas cancer is one of the most aggressive cancers we have in the world. If they are able to show, to diagnose pancreas cancer very, very early, this is definitely a breakthrough and a game changer. And maybe even this in the near future. It was our very first IPO, and the IPO at Nasdaq in Stockholm was also quite successful, at least 5 times oversubscribed. So you have seen a company more technology-oriented, another one more in the biopharmaceutical area. The last one, similar, is a company which is working in languages, a new kind of IT-based language system which allows you to learn a new language within 200 hours. Unfortunately, the invitation to Dubai came a little bit too late. Otherwise, I would be able to talk in at least 2 languages here in France, so I have to stick to English. Again, as you see, it's a fairly young company, only created in 2013, but